Hello, everyone, and welcome back to For St. Pete's Sake, the only podcast where we deep dive into everything political here in Pinellas County, the state of Florida, and beyond. My name is Christian. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Laura. The dream team is back together once again. Laura, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good today, Christian. Hasn't started raining yet, which we're supposed to get a whole bunch of rain, but it hasn't started yet. So I've been enjoying the sunshine that we've had today. So how have you been doing today?
I've been doing great, and I'm honestly very excited for today's episode because we've got an incredible guest with us today, and I want to get right into it. So please welcome Ana Eskamani.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be with you.
Thank you for joining.
It's awesome to have you. I know that I've been here in Florida for 3 years, and I've been a fan and watching you on my Instagrams for a while. So I'm very excited. And you got interviewed on one of my favorite podcasts, Hysteria, with Aaron Ryan and Alyssa Mastromonaco. So I was like, oh my gosh, so excited to talk to you today.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, so why don't you start off, tell us a little bit about yourself and, how you got into politics here in Florida.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I am born and raised here in Orlando. I'm the daughter of working class immigrants who came to this country from Iran in search of the American dream. I grew up in a household full of love, but not a lot of money. So we always struggled to make ends meet, and really blessed to not do it alone. I have a twin sister named Ida, who's also very involved in all the political spaces, and a big brother named Aria. And we did everything we could to really make our parents proud. I mean, I think especially when you come from a working class background, immigrant family, you just realize all the sacrifices your parents have made. And so there's like this unique pressure to stay focused. And in particular, public education was paramount in my household, and I really just did everything I can to, focus on the work in front of me as a young person, grew up in Orlando, and in that experience, our family faced a lot of challenges, and probably the biggest was my mom being diagnosed with colon cancer, and I was about 9 years old, and unfortunately passing away when I was 13. And that loss was huge for us, and to this day, incredibly difficult. But it definitely propelled us into a life of service in the sense that I made a decision to honor my mom's life through the act of empowering others. I also aspired to be like my mom in a lot of ways, in the sense that she was so selfless and so courageous. She did everything for those around her. And even though we didn't have a lot to give, she still found ways to be that gracious. And so I always carried those values with me as I got older. But of course, navigating that loss was really challenging. And it was 8th grade when I lost my mom. And you would think that in that environment, the last thing from my mind would be going back to school. But in fact, that Monday, after my mom passed away, that weekend, my sister and I, my brother, went right back to school, knowing that that's what our mom would have wanted, but also because our public educational systems are safe places for a lot of kiddos. Mm-hmm. But I bring that up because I met my first openly gay friend when I was in 8th grade. And we actually had a crush on the same boy. And we are friends to this day. But I bring it up because he was really struggling to come out. He was really struggling to be his authentic self. So he has his own challenges and trauma, as I was navigating my own challenges and trauma. And we just built this like really important bond where we were both kind of navigating our own unique situations, but yet the support we had for one another was so essential to each other's health and well-being and support as we navigated this really challenging world around us. And so I share that context because as I got older and find myself, in a AP government class, my senior year of high school, I didn't have a party affiliation. Actually, when I got registered to vote, I registered no party affiliation, but I just fell in love with the aspirations and the courage of young people. And I was very lucky because at the time when I turned 18, it was the first election of President Barack Obama, which for many of us was quite historic. And for that to be my first election set me on a really strong footing to be more civically engaged as I got older as well. So all through college, I got to throw myself into activism and all these issues and more. I ended up working at Planned Parenthood before I ran for office for about 7 years, and I was a Planned Parenthood patient before then. I actually did a lot of work in Tampa Bay and St. Pete. I was the Senior Director of Public Affairs and Communications across 22 counties, so made a lot of trips out to the West Coast and the East Coast, managing a team of 6 across 22 counties. And then 2016 came around, and obviously when 2016 came around, like so many Floridians and Americans, I was just like, this is bullshit. Something has to change. And that's where I built the courage to run for office for the first time. And I've flipped my seat from red to blue back in 2018. And I've been in public office since, winning 4 elections and serving my community in the Orlando area with both grit and grace. So it's a long-winded introduction, but it's so great to be here. And thank you again for having me.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's really great because it is, I do think us millennials having that, I'm an elder millennial, so for me, like 9/11 and then the Bush Gore, like real Bush Gore election really pushed me into activism and wanting to be involved in politics. And then I know for a lot of the rest of the younger part of the generation, Barack Obama's ascendance into, the presidency and his message has been really inspirational for a lot of people. So and I love it. I don't know. I love hearing about 8th grade stories and our 8th grade friends that we're still cool with. Like that's so special. I've got a couple of friends from that time too that I'm friends with. So I definitely know how special that connection can be. So we just have a couple of questions for you. If you don't mind, we'll hop right in.
Ready?
Yeah. So first one is that you have been called the most vocal progressive leader in Florida. What drives your passion for advocacy, especially in a state with such a conservative legislature?
Well, a part of it is a desire to defeat my enemies. No, I'm just kidding.
I love it.
That would have been a good answer.
but so there is a bit of there is a bit of spite there for sure,
Yes.
right? Where it's just like, we cannot let the fascists win. Like, I feel like that is a paramount piece of this for sure. But I mean, my desire to get involved in politics was not really driven by partisanship or, understanding of some of the issues we're fighting today. I was driven towards service because I care about my community. And I think you often have to ask yourself, where is the most effective place of service? And I found myself, like I said earlier, at Planned Parenthood for 6.5, 7 years. I was a patient before then. So the issues of reproductive health rights, justice, and freedom are so personal to me, not just as a cis hetero woman of reproductive age who may need these services, but also in the fact that I feel so passionately that access to healthcare is paramount, and that we should have a single payer medical system for access to coverage, and that no one should have to decide between paying the rent or paying the medical bills or delaying care. My mom's story as an example, it's one of equity in the fact that there were disparities in being able to access preventive care. There was one of sensitivity in the notion that as an immigrant family, we didn't talk about these issues. So she ignored what were serious problems that could have been proactively addressed early. And also, of course, just income. I mean, the amount of debt we carried after she passed away was huge. Yeah. And so, I'm constantly thinking about my own family and my own experiences, but also the empathy that I have to put myself in other people's shoes and to fight for folks who are different of me, and making their crisis my crisis, right? And I think the problem-solving opportunities that I have in my position as elected official are so motivating, despite all the challenges around us and systemic problems, and of course the extremism coming from both the White House and the governor's mansion. I do ground myself in those little moments of hope, whether it's us being able to help someone access rental assistance and keep them housed, or helping a small business access a loan, helping one of our, like today, I toured a medical school in the Central Florida area that we helped to ensure that they were included in a specific bill as it pertains to an effort to expand access to medical schools. And so those little moments definitely keep me going. But also the organizing that we do, I find to be necessary. We're not going to get this state on a different track if we just wallow in our own misery. And so work is definitely one of my numbing mechanisms. Not healthy, but I do throw myself in my work because it's like one of the only tools I have, to try to make a difference and stop the bleeding of all the harm that's being fermented and fostered around us. And that is a long-term focus for me. I look at folks who came before us and the fights that they had, and that obviously motivates me to keep going.
Absolutely. And I got to say, I've been a fan for several years now. I've been following everywhere I can. And I've met you a couple of times before through the political party here in Pinellas. And you were a guest at our um, dinner that we just had at the beginning of June. So I just got to say that I'm incredibly grateful that you're here, and that you are an amazing force in the legislature. I know it's not easy being in a completely Republican dominated space like that. So thank you for being that force. Um, and you've worked from everything from education to environmental justice. You fight on many fronts. What issue is currently keeping you up at night?
Definitely immigration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the I think as Democrats, it's really important not to lose sight of just the daily grind, in the sense that you have to be responsive to your constituents. And as I already noted, the crisis that's in front of them right now, and locally, that's housing affordability, that's the cost of living, transportation, and we get every issue there is, right? I have folks who are emailing me about a situation in the public school, or a situation with a speed bump, or a situation with their neighborhood park. And so, candidly, what keeps me up at night every day is just the workload. I mean, I often am falling asleep on my couch next to my double monitors because I'm just spending hours responding back to people. I don't think folks realize, one, this is a part-time legislature, so we're only paid $28,000 to do this work, and so I do have another day job on top of this. But two, a lot of what you have to do is almost like a glorified office job, right? Like, you have to just be responsive, and we're getting flooded with phone calls, emails, text messages, DMs. I mean, people will reach out to you in whatever format is their preference, and you got to be responsive. I literally have on my calendar, check LinkedIn messages, because I have not had a chance to check LinkedIn messages, and folks are messaging me there and everywhere else. So that's stressful in the sense of, like, you're not given the staff to help you with that load. I mean, we have a district of 188,000 people and only 2 staffers, right? And so that's not enough to sustain this effort. And that's not even considering the political side. I mean, I raise my own dollars to fund my political operations. So it's stressful raising the money to pay my staff and keep these operations going forward as well. But I think the topic of this moment, that it's incredibly overwhelming and just scary for those directly impacted, is absolutely immigration, in the sense that you have um, masked individuals showing up at immigration courts, abducting and trafficking immigrants. You have folks who are just trying to follow the rules set before them, that are finding themselves in detainment with no due process. When I see folks impacted, I see my family. I think about my parents, and images of folks who are working in our fields or construction sites being abducted and targeted, to folks who are dressed up in their formal attire, going to an immigration hearing, only to then be handcuffed, holding their manila envelope of documents. I mean, this is sick.
Yeah.
This is so sick. And I'm so frustrated by those who attempt to defend what is happening right now, or compare it to past administrations. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've always been disappointed with the inability of members of Congress and different presidents to champion and solve this issue. But I would argue that conservatives prefer for the immigration system to be broken, not only because they can raise money off creating a crisis silo, but based on what I've seen from Project 2025 and President Trump, they are falling straight into conspiracy theories. They are practicing the replacement theory. They are intentionally trying to remove people of color from this country, because inevitably we're becoming more diverse, and that scares them. And so when you're removing Black and brown people but allowing for white South Africans to have direct passes to this country, or you're creating visas with dollar signs attached to them, I mean, give me a fucking break. Like, I'm sorry, but it is so clear what is happening right now, and it's disgusting. And everyone should call it out. And it's so frustrating to see people that voted for Trump and say, oh, I thought he didn't mean me. And I actually saw this with an Iranian couple. And so it was an interracial marriage. It was an American woman married to an Iranian man. And he got detained, and they both supported Trump. And like, and so, I mean, I hope it's a learning opportunity for people, but my God, I wish there were easier ways for people to learn. Like, this is so frustrating. But, at the same time, like, I'm a firm believer in the evolution of people and creating spaces to welcome people who change their minds and shift their viewpoints. But yeah, I mean, it's very difficult and overwhelming, and my heart just hurts for all the folks who are caught in this.
Yeah. And especially now, obviously we have, in Florida, there's a high immigrant population coming from Cuba, and just coming through, just immigration in general. And then and so it's it's an everybody problem, but the alligator Alcatraz that has been built in the Everglades is just, I can't. I've had to limit my ability of like what news I'm taking in on it, because it is so like it's terrifying. The tents that just went up, and they're just these metal beds inside metal cages essentially, and there's no air conditioning, and I didn't see anything resembling a bathroom, and it's like there's that torture to those people, and then there's that torture to our environment. The Everglades are never going to be the same after this, even if they don't put anyone in there. What they're already doing to the environment is absolutely unforgivable, along with everything else. And that's definitely one that's been keeping me up at night as well. And I guess when you started giving that the grace to people to change and to learn and to grow, what do you think the playbook is for flipping the script in Florida, for getting more people either voting Democrat or registering Democrat?
So a part of it is we have to do the work, and I get frustrated by Democratic politicians who just kind of insinuate you should know better. They lecture and preach versus ask and wonder about why we're losing, right? And so I look at our district as examples of the right way to do things, which basically involves like a lot of work. We're knocking on doors every day of the year. I've already knocked on 5,000 doors for a election serving Orlando mayor in 2027. And I'm already doing the work now. And we're knocking on doors. We're not just talking about our race and what folks want to see out of their mayor, but we're also, of course, helping other candidates who overlap with our district, so we can lift up all boats at the same time. So that's essential, is collaborating with other races, because resources are scarce, time is of essence. So what can you do to kind of force yourself to be collaborative? Sometimes it's not instinctive for politicians, because folks are so self-absorbed and just focus on their own self-preservation. But we're not going to be able to actually get the bills we want or the budgets we need unless it's many of us, not just one person. And so it does slow us down. Like, for example, when I knock on a door with 3 different asks of one candidate, that means there's less doors I'll probably get to that day. But I do think it's worth slowing things down when you start early to help other people's success with yours. And so that's a decision that I intentionally make, and I try to encourage others to also do that. So that collaboration is key. Be coordinated, be strategic. And I always tell my team, I do a lot of management all the time. Work smarter, not harder, because we are working as hard as we can, right? So always try to work smarter. But a part of that is also, what are you talking about when you're at the doors? So I'm maybe an outlier to some degree where I don't raise money from some of the traditional places that some candidates do, like Florida Power and Light, Duke Energy, all these utility companies. I don't raise money from them. I don't raise money from agricultural interests or sugar. I don't raise money from theme parks, from private prisons, from banks, insurance companies. I have turned down checks from these entities. And so I think it's really important to raise money. And that's my biggest stressor every day is raising money. But raise it from places that match your values. And even if you're not going to raise as much as your opposition, when you can speak about your values, like say, I don't take money from FPL because they're petitioning the PSD right now for the largest rate hike in American history. And that's bad for my constituents. And I'm going to stand up against it, right? Like it gives you the freedom to be expressed in that way. Now, granted, it does put a target on your back, and I have been targeted by FPL. They did a smear campaign on me, all of the things. But I do think that when you have the respect of your constituents and you're out there, you're at their doors, you're building a relation with them, you can communicate to them directly, you're on your own, it helps combat a lot of that misinformation. And so the issues we talk about have to be driven by the needs on the ground. And I mentioned this earlier, but the economy is an issue that Democrats need to champion more. It's frustrating because, it's conservatives that are unfortunately creating the messaging environment that we have to be responsive to, because we absolutely need to defend all of our impacted communities, but that can't be the only thing that we do. And ideally, you're also bringing things back to your values. I mean, I did an interview earlier today about the concentration camp being built, in the Everglades. And my focus was on the contracts, how there's no transparency, it's not an open bid process, but also the fact that a lot of these contractors, DeSantis donors, this is cronyism. This is contracts going to friends of the administration. That public money gets recycled and given back to politicians as checks, while these CEOs make bank on incarcerating people with no due process in environmentally sensitive area. That's trash, and we gotta be able to talk about that. But at the same time, like, pivot back to these everyday issues that people care about. Don't get just caught up, in that in their message framework. You have to also build your own, and that goes back to having a proactive agenda versus a reactive one. And with all that said, the biggest need is just doing the work. I need folks to not just protest. Sometimes you got to put down the sign and pick up a clipboard and help knock on doors, help register people to vote, help with vote by mail renewals. Protesting is a great tool, and definitely can help first timers get more involved, and it gets you our media, but it can't be where you stop. It's where you start.
Absolutely.
For sure. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I want to pivot a little bit. You touched on your relationship with your gay friend in the beginning. So over the past several years, we've seen a lot of attacks on the LGBTQ community, and this year was no different with I think it was like 3 or 4 different bills that were attacking trans people. So what is your message to the LGBTQ community while we're constantly feeling just targeted and attacked and beaten down?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Well, first of all, you're not alone. And I always like to emphasize that I am more than just an ally. I consider myself to be an accomplice, which means we don't just show up during Pride Month looking all cute with a rainbow tutu on, which we will still do. But we're also showing up when things get really hard. We're showing up at the Board of Medicine meeting to defend trans kids and access to gender affirming care. We're showing up on the House floor or in the rotunda, activating folks around these issues, helping to strategize and organize with organizations like Equality Florida, raising money. I just helped raise money for Orlando Youth Alliance, one of our local nonprofits that serves LGBTQ plus kids. And I was just at Zebra Youth's prom night, which is another one of our trans affirming organizations for young people as well. So it's showing up when no one else is showing up. It's putting your money where your mouth is and being unapologetic. And I do think with the privilege that I have as a cis hetero person, I have to use that privilege to combat homophobia and transphobia. So do know that you're not alone, and you have folks that are going to carry this weight with you of resistance. Now, with that said, also take a sense of pride and celebration, the fact that we stopped all these bad bills this year out of Tallahassee. And sometimes we forget to celebrate the wins because we just have so many losses. But don't forget that, we've had wins. And I do think a part of this is tied to the fact that there has been such a backlash to candidates who have made these issues their platforms. And so that's so important for us to keep telling stories, keep breaking the misinformation. And I'll even give one recent example. We were able to bring back to the city of Orlando about $400,000 for a Pulse memorial. This was money that the state of Florida received back from the One Pulse Foundation in a situation that was incredibly frustrating and unfortunate. The One Pulse Foundation, which was a nonprofit that was supposed to help build this memorial, ended up going defunct. And so they had to return the public money allocated to them back to the state of Florida in a settlement. And we got that money back to the state of Orlando. And there was a fear that the governor would veto this request in the budget, and he didn't. And I had some reporters ask me, well, why do you think the governor didn't veto this funding? My response was, well, I don't think it's because he cares about this issue. I think he's just trying to avoid the backlash, because the last time he vetoed money for Pulse survivors, mental health dollars, we went after him aggressively. And we actually were able to raise the money that he vetoed from the private sector from that noise that we built. So we ended up still able to support these programs just for the generosity of those that were so pissed off about this veto. So I suspect he didn't want the distraction from all the other terrible things that he's doing. But I also think it's because we have built this incredible force to be reckoned with. Equality Florida had one of its largest days at the Capitol in Florida history. They stopped 2 bills because of the number of comment cards people submitted. It was upwards of 500 comment cards per committee meeting. That stuff works. And so get plugged in, get organized, and don't feel alone.
That's an incredible message. And a way to not feel alone is to join local Democratic clubs and caucuses like Stonewall Democrats of Pinellas. And so what do you think our clubs and caucuses can do to better support statewide efforts to fight those anti-LGBTQ plus laws?
So conversations like this are so important, right? Like, I think a part of the role for our caucuses is to educate, inform, and inspire, especially non-political people to get involved. I think there is this assumption that every person who's in an impacted community group is political and is politically engaged, and that's so not true. Like, I mean, I meet so many folks from old communities, and I'm the first politician they've met. I'm the first politician they've ever followed online. Especially when you don't have opportunities in our classrooms to teach history on these issues, then unless there's someone there to teach these topics and to kind of be that guide on civics, then we cannot assume that every LGBTQ plus Floridian is politically engaged, is politically minded. I mean, granted, I would argue that just your existence is political and an active resistance. But again, that's just not the case for every person. And so to kind of be that liaison, to get folks more civically minded, to understand how the personal is political and what they can do about it, I think that is a really important role that caucuses can continue to play. And then, of course, just help expand whatever work is already happening on the ground. Volunteer with a candidate that inspires you or an issue you care about. I conduct voter registration drives. We actually just hosted 4 different what we call dorm storms. There are student voter registration drives on college campuses during move-in days. So for the summer B semester, we did voter registration at USF, UCF, FSU, and UF. And then we'll do them again and more for the fall semester. And it was such a great experience. And we need volunteers to help us with that, because any type of field activity, I mean, it's simple math, right? The more volunteers you have, the more you can do. So we know it's hot out there, but we cannot slow down. And so if you have the capacity to knock on doors, do voter registration, home bank with us, like, there's so many ways to get plugged in, and we're happy to be a liaison for all of our clubs and caucuses and make that happen.
Yeah, I always say it's very important to get involved locally in either the local Democratic Party or one of the clubs or caucuses within the parties. So I agree. There's a lot that we can do, and there's a lot of overlap that we have. So we will continue to support you guys however we can. I think we're going to move on to some rapid fire questions real quick. So we're just going to, we've got a couple, and you just give up one word, one sentence response. All righty. So first one's going
Sounds
to
great.
be, what's one Republican bill you wish never existed? Just one.
Just one? Yeah, it's impossible. I mean, I would probably say the 6-week abortion ban because it's so tangibly horrific, and there's been no path to stop it. You know, we tried with the Amendment 4, and we got to 57%, which was amazing, but not enough to end the near total abortion ban. But the ramifications of that are huge in so many ways. So I would definitely say the 6-week abortion ban.
Alrighty, now here's a fun one. What is your favorite protest sign that you've seen, perhaps even that has your name on it?
I mean, the most recent one was no kings, but yes, queens. That was fabulous.
Yes, I saw lots of those for sure. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. And the last one here is going to be, what's the first thing you'd do if you do win the race for mayor of Orlando?
Oh my gosh. And start planning our first 100 days. I mean, there's a lot of work to do in the city of Orlando. I think a lot of folks would want me to record a new airport voice. That's what everyone talks about in the city of Orlando. But I'm going to be focused on crafting our affordable housing policies for the first City Hall commission meetings and get this agenda through.
Awesome.
Yes, well, that all sounds great. I know affordability, that comes up with, that's a huge thing for everybody all across Florida. So I know that people will be very thankful for any affordability stuff that we can get done here in the state. So, well, I think that's basically all that we had for you today. So again, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Laura, you're rushing past. We got a whole other segment.
No, I am. I almost forgot our shout out or shutdown. What am I even thinking?
Shut us down. She was shutting us down.
Oh my gosh, I know, right?
Oh,
so yeah, let's hop into our shout out or shutdown now. Sorry about that. Yeah, let's do our shout out or shutdown. This is our section where we shout out either something that has gone awesome or someone that's awesome that we want to give kudos to, or we shut down something that is not awesome that we don't want to give kudos to. We can go ahead and start with Christian. I think you have a good shout out if you're doing the one we talked about earlier.
I do, and I am. So this past weekend was St. Pete Pride, and it was absolutely fabulous. We had a great time. I spoke about it yesterday. I don't want to go to it again today, but one of the bad things that happened is the city of St. Pete decided to partner with ICE, and ICE had a presence during Pride, which was definitely not welcome. But
oh my God, get out of here.
Yeah. But what I want to shout out is they used Allendale United Methodist Church's parking lot.
I saw that. And Andy, go Andy.
Pastor Andy Oliver sent the police department a bill for $10,000 for using his parking lot without permission. So I just want to shout out Pastor Andy because he's been a fierce advocate for the LGBTQ community for a long time. And he's an amazing friend and partner for us. And I just want to give him a shout out because he is an incredible man.
Yeah, I was super excited when I saw that too. Was not very excited, obviously, to hear the news that, the St. Pete's Police partnered with ICE, especially during Pride. But, I love I love putting your money where your mouth is, quite literally, from Pastor Andy. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, Ana Eskamani, what do you have for us? Do you have a shout out or a shutdown?
Oh, man. I mean, I can do both because there's always things to be positive about.
Yeah, go ahead. Give us both.
I would say just a shout out to our incredible supporters. We were just able to start fundraising for our Orlando mayor's race when legislative session ended about 2 weeks ago. And we raised in that time span $100,000 from more than 3,000 donations.
That's amazing.
Our grassroots support and folks stepping up in such a last minute type of time frame. And then obviously, I think a shout down is just, the Supreme Court cases to the concentration camp being built. I mean, it's just like one bad headline after the other, and a lot of work to do. So that's definitely incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, for sure. I do like we do have such great supporters. So I do like that you had that silver lining and thinking about that. And I love that you have such great grassroots support. So yeah. Let's see. I'm going to do a shout out, and I'm going to do a shout out to wait, I did this one yesterday. Our partners with St. Pete Pride, didn't I? Darn, I already did that one. Okay. I was looking at my notes from yesterday. That's why. So my shout out today will be to Mayor Ken Welch. I saw all of his posts. He does such a great job promoting St. Pete and getting us in the best position. And he's done posts about what are we going to do now that, what was it, yesterday was July 1st and we can't have fluoride in the water anymore, and how is he going to continue to protect our community? So I've been very impressed by the mayor and his messages to the community over the last month or so. So yeah, my shout out's going to go to Mayor Ken Welch.
I love it.
I love that.
Well,
that's great.
Now that does bring us to the end of our show. So and I want to thank you once again for joining us. It's been an incredible honor to have you. Thank you to everyone watching, and we appreciate it so much.
Yeah, and Rep. Eskamani, do you want to let them know where they can find you on the interwebs? Although I'm sure most people already know.
Yeah, for sure. You can find us at Ana for Florida on all the major social media places, including Blue Sky. Not that active on Twitter as much as I used to be, so I encourage folks to follow us on other platforms. And then we also have Ana for Orlando as a new handle, and our both of our websites are Ana for Florida or AnaForOrlando.com. And if you're interested in getting more involved with our team, if you click on that volunteer button on either one of our websites, AnaForFlorida.com/volunteer, then you'll be part of our weekly volunteer newsletter. And we do have virtual activities that are accessible to anyone everywhere. So definitely give us a shout out online, and love to see you join our volunteer network as well.
Amazing. Well, thanks everybody for listening to another episode this week of For St. Pete's Sake. Please remember to like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at For St. Pete's Sake. Subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen. If you want to leave a rate and review, that would be awesome as well. We'll be back next week with more stories from the people doing the hard work to make our community better. Until next time, for St. Pete's sake, keep pushing for change. And